You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? America Off the Rails has been declared a conservatives-only safe zone. Only conservatives allowed from this point forward. Any liberal, socialist, butthurt, hippie, tree huggers, please exit the facility immediately. Again, attention please. America Off the Rails is now designated as a conservative safe zone only. All butthurt, tree-hugging, hippie, free-to-be, you and me types exit the facility immediately. Thank you.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off election.
Keep on doing what you do, Rick. You're my favorite host.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
All right, folks. Well, happy Thursday evening. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. Just a few minutes past the hour right here. And we are joined this evening by someone who needs no introduction, but she's going to get one anyway. Ms. J.R. Homestead from Twitter. One of the smartest Twitter people that I know has decided to come on and hang out with me on the show today, although I'm not sure why. But I've been told that she's going to bring a few IQ points and even some looks to the show. So who am I to say no? Good evening, J.R. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. So just in case maybe we've got some folks that don't know who you are, I don't know. I mean, you're not like big in politics and stuff like that, so you don't have a radio show or anything like that. But just in case they want to interact with you after the show, why don't you go ahead and tell them how they can connect with you and maybe just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll actually move on to the topics and the news of the day if you don't mind.
Okay, great. Well, you can find me on Twitter at jholmsted, HOLMSTED. That's the main place to connect with me. I decided to kind of get involved in politics on social media and I think at the end of 2014, so right before the elections there. Been interested my whole life, was involved a lot in college, have a government and history major, and just kind of took off for a while, busy with career and getting married and whatnot. And now having a kid of my own just kind of, I think, reinvigorated my interest in where this country is headed.
So I have a question, because you'd mentioned that you'd recently married and I know you have a smaller child. So what are some of the things that drew you back into the political discussion? What were some of the things that you saw that you were excited about? What are some of the things that you are that you maybe are a little trepidatious about? And go back as far as you need to.
I'm trying to think. I think after college, I was so immersed in politics. Summers in DC at conferences, and was involved with Young America's Foundation, which is just a great organization for high school and college students who want to be involved in the conservative movement, and did a lot of stuff with various different organizations. And I think I just kind of got burned out after we kept, Bush was in office. We didn't have, I guess, a whole lot of room to grow. And it was kind of the same old all the time. And it just kind of got old. And like I said, then I kind of, found a real life, quote unquote, and met my husband and everything. And so that kind of took priority. After having my son, I think I was just kind of looking, because I decided to stay home with him for the first couple of years of his life. And I think that kind of led me back to my natural interest in political philosophy, ideology, and then just the actual American political beast. Especially knowing that I'm going to be raising a kid in what is now becoming just an insane America that I don't even know what's happening to us anymore. I'm trying to think of specifics. Education has always been something, the public school system is just a disaster. So that's something that's always at the forefront for me. All of the political correctness, the participation trophies, everybody's special, so therefore no one's special, but you're all special kind of thing, which I think kind of leads to making people seek out all these special or certain labels and protected interests and all of those things, and kind of help develop all of that. All of that really kind of drew me back in. And then the invigoration after, I think there's a lot of defeat with the first election and then the re-election of Obama, the reinvigoration with the kind of the Tea Party movement, then leading into the 14, elections, midterms, that was just really, I think I kind of felt excited again about it. We can really make some change. We can get some people in here and then move on to 2016 and just storm the White House. Of course, that has turned into a totally different thing than what I ever expected. But that was kind of the motivation there, getting back on the up and up with politics.
No, and the reason, and I asked this of all the guests, whether they are authors, political talk show hosts, whatever their leanings may be, especially if they do have any interest in politics, because I'm curious to find out what the driving factor is with a lot of us. Because, like me, I never, in any of my multitude of careers at this point, because I'm now about to be 43 years old, I've changed career paths now about 4 times. Never in a million years did I think that I would ever be doing something like this. But there came a time, and it was around the same times that you were talking about. This was shortly after the initial Obama election. The economy had completely tanked. My business was going into the ground, and there was nothing that I could do to save it. And to keep my family fed and food on my table and a roof over their head, I took a job that I thought I was going to hate. Turns out I was fairly good at it. I became a mid-level supervisor at a call center, and I've kind of done call center supervisory work ever since to keep food on the table. But at the same time, I kept watching the country basically just falling apart. And I honestly started noticing it during Bush 43's second term. And I know he listens to the show, and he hates it when I do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And one of these days, I hope to be able to get him on to have him explain it, if he's willing to, because one of the first things that I saw that really made me stand up and start screaming from my little molehill that this wasn't right was the Patriot Act. And that was during Bush 43's second term. And then we get to the point where all of a sudden we're told that the best guy to do anything for the country as of 2008 was John McCain. And I didn't believe it when I was force-fed it or spoon-fed it or whatever you want to call it, but I still did what I thought I needed to do, and I pulled the lever for McCain when the time came. And then in 2012, basically the same thing happened, and we were told that Romney was the best guy to get it done. And look, in comparison to who we have running now as far as who the front runner is, Romney's a Boy Scout, and I still think he would have been a great choice for a lot of reasons. But a lot of folks were holding their nose when they pulled the lever for Romney. And that was around the time that I really started getting involved in this stuff, because it's just at this point, I think if we go too much further down this progressive movement, there's just not going to be anything left of the country to save. And that's why I've been fighting so hard against both Hillary and Trump, because they're the same freaking people. Just one of them's wearing a dress.
Yep.
And nobody wants to understand that. Well, at least not until today. There's been an interesting development today because Trump came out and basically said that he's fine with whoever wants to use any bathroom should be able to use any bathroom. So now the same split that everybody's been talking about with the Republican Party is pretty rife within the Trump camp, because you have the folks that are like, what? Wait, what? No? And then the other folks are like, no, wait, that's not what he meant. This is what he meant. So it's been interesting watching Twitter implode all day. I'm just saying.
Well, I think also there are certain things. I think there are certain things that they could stomach and they could shrug off and they could explain away. But the true, people that at their core have invested for a long time in the conservative, or at least in the conservative movement, or at least the Republican Party, that were really energized by Trump. I think there was, obviously it's a populist type movement, but I think there was just a lot of fed up kind of, angry is always thrown in there. I'm not sure everyone was so angry as they were just like excited about someone who just said what they were thinking, talked like them, was a little bit crass and kind of went after people, things they'd wanted to say to someone for a long time or they wanted another politician to do. And so that all kind of like excited people. But then there are some things that they just can't swallow. And that's like doing a little bit of a backtracking on abortion, wanting the Republican Party to take a more liberalized or moderate stance on that. When our platform has been the same since 1984, and it has only gotten better. We've only gotten stronger in the pro-life movement. We've gained more ground in the last 6 years than we did in the previous 16. So for him to say that the GOP needs to walk that back is just really damaging to all the people that have done so much work. And I know you and I both have some good friends that have been at the forefront of all of that. And then also the transgender bathroom thing. I think, there are a lot of people that just can't get on board with that. They can't spin that in any way that, they can make him look good. And so there's a little bit of a realization happening with a few of those people that maybe aren't so hard-lined and aren't so what we call, Trumpsters or Trump humpers or whatever people name you want to use, that can't see why he would take that route and can't defend that.
Just a bit of a disclaimer, folks. This is not one of the ones that is going to be going to terrestrial radio, at least not without an edit, because it won't be immediately going over. So I'm going to let my hair down a little bit tonight. What I'm about to say is probably going to piss off some conservatives when it comes to this bathroom thing. But I'm going to give you guys the same take that I've had on all the time. Look, if you've had the reassignment surgery and you've now taken hormones and everything else where Sally Mae now looks like Fred Savage, then yeah, Sally Mae should probably then be allowed to use the bathroom that she most resembles. But if you're going to throw on a dress and try to put lipstick on a pig and try to tell me that you should be using the women's restroom, I have a problem with that. Because if the plumbing is not going to match the accoutrement, then you shouldn't be allowed to use that bathroom. But if you've gone through all the trouble and you legitimately and literally identify as either a man or a woman, and you've done the reassignment surgeries and you've taken the hormones and you've done everything else, then who am I to judge what bathroom you use? But what scares all of us is these guys that are like 55 years old. They got stubble everywhere. They lift weights for a living. They got bulging veins, and all they want to do on a Saturday night is throw on a dress because they think it's going to be cool to walk into some nasty friggin' women's bathroom at a baseball game. First of all, I don't even like going into the men's room in baseball games or any other public venue for that matter, so I can't imagine the women's restrooms are going to be any better. Just saying.
Right. Well, I also think that people kind of, I don't know, maybe underestimate this a little bit. Like they kind of, some of the points have been, well, you know, what's to stop them now? Like, you know, a speeding sign doesn't keep someone from speeding. Gun law doesn't keep someone from carrying a gun. So how is this going to make someone do something more? It's not that it's going to make anything more, and no one's saying that trans people are predators, but it does make it easier for those that are. In any given, Walmart, Target, Costco, whatever it is, or the mall, if a predatorial man wants to go into a women's restroom and stalk/harass, possibly even assault someone, they will check it out. They'll scout the place. They'll be watching for eyes. They'll be looking for security cameras. They'll be watching for actual employees, security managers, things like that. And they'll wait for it to make sure it's just one woman that's in there and that the coast is clear before they dive in. Now, if you can't say anything, if you can't stop and check someone when they're about to do that, then yes, it does open a door for the predatorial types. Doesn't mean that there's going to be this overwhelming amount of it. But the fact of the matter is that if anyway we're making it easier on them in order to accommodate less than 0.5% of the population, of which we don't even know how many of them really care about this all that much, other than a few, very loud microphones. It's problematic, and it is absolutely a public concern.
No, I agree completely. And one of the stories that's been going around for quite a while now is that the gentleman who spearheaded this movement in North Carolina after the bathroom bill and everything else, at least I think that was where it was. I don't have the article in front of me anymore, but it turns out that apparently he has a record for this type of thing, and it just kind of makes you stop and think, And it's one of the things that I've been saying all along, because look, and again, I am personally opposed to gay marriage, but I'm not going to force my views onto anyone else. But the one thing that I've been saying for years is when we got to the point where that became normal, they were going to start pushing the envelope on other things. And that's exactly what's starting to happen. Because the simple fact of the matter is that is human behavior. You push an envelope as far as you can until it snaps back, and that's where you stop. Now that we are caving in to every little niche group, no matter how small and no matter how insignificant, all they're going to continue to do is continue to blur the lines, and they're going to continue to make things worse, and they're going to continue to make things worse for all of us, because you're not going to be able to feel safe anymore. I mean, and this is coming from a man that for the longest time was a single father. I raised a small daughter on my own for several years before I met the wife that I'm with now. And it would terrify me in today's world to have that 6 or 7 year old girl who I wouldn't necessarily be comfortable because of her age to be taking her into the men's room anymore, to send her into a ladies' room by herself and run the risk of there possibly being one of those people in the restroom there already, or to come in there while she's in there. I couldn't imagine living in that type of world with small children. I really
And these
couldn't.
are the type of things that people don't think about. And also, a lot of these places that people are concerned about, trans people being able to go and, not being forced to go in a men's restroom if they don't feel like a man, if they don't act, dress, whatever, like a man. Almost all of these places have a gender neutral option, which is the handicap/family restroom. And, and single-use restrooms in general are not the problem. If there's a single-use restroom labeled men and a single-use restroom labeled women, let's take those signs off and just say restroom, restroom. And then anyone can go in either one because it's a single-use. You lock the door behind you and there's no worries about it. It's the locker rooms. It's the multi-stall bathrooms. Particularly, this doesn't really affect places like bars so much or whatever. People kind of go wherever they go anyways. And it's crowded and there's always someone there and all of that. But it's the women and children that I think are the ones that feel uncomfortable with this entire situation. And like I said, in a lot of these places that they want to implement these policies, there is already a restroom that they can use. And instead, you're going to find elderly women, single young women, maybe teenagers, and women with young children who are going to be standing in line for that one restroom if they're afraid of going into that other one. Now, that might subside after a little while, like most things do with any sort of thing like this. But initially, you're talking about in a lot of places, there may be 1 or 2 trans people that come in there a week, but we're rededicating all of this space and reorganize everything. And so these are the people that have to accommodate them. The 25 families that come in every day have to rearrange how they do things because of what we're told needs to happen for this very small population.
And what part of that makes sense?
Right. Well,
and that's just a rational
that mob
question.
Rule thing, it's the minority ruling the majority, but
I guess I do understand it because it goes back to what we talked about a few minutes ago, where basically human behavior is designed to continue to push the envelope. It's how we've managed to create flying machines that can do better than Mach 2. We've been to the moon. But I think part of it, and it goes back to this the whole participation trophy movement, because nobody's really allowed to hurt themselves anymore, and they're not really allowed to do anything dangerous. And if you're a parent and you don't have your child completely wrapped around in bubble wrap all day long, all day, every day, then you're a terrible parent. I think that's what's happened, is we've taken the pushing of the envelope and taken it away from the things that matter, the exploring and the sporting events and everything else, and we've turned it to the social justice movement. And that's now the new cool way to push the envelope, is how much further can we push this for the next generation to make it that much easier for those of us that don't identify with this gender or the other. And my issue isn't necessarily with those folks, because again, if you really do feel like you should have been born a man or born a woman or whatever the case may be, and you take the time to take all of the necessary steps to make those changes, then I don't care what bathroom you use. Because at that point, you have done the deed and you've done what you needed to do to feel more comfortable. But for Trump to basically say that he would be fine with Bruce, a.k.a. Caitlyn Jenner, going into any bathroom, I'm sorry, last I checked, he may wear a dress, but he still has the twig and berries.
Right, which is funny because people keep using her as the poster child, yet she hasn't had the snippy. So that kind of annoys me. And actually, like a pretty good friend of mine who's in the LGBT community always makes jokes about that. Is like, wait, why is Caitlyn the spokesperson? Like, why? She's not even fully trans. Like, she has not transitioned. So it's really kind of funny. I mean, obviously she's had some work done and she's had some things done, but that particular part of it, which is the culmination of becoming the opposite sex, has not happened. And so it's always hilarious to hear his commentary on it.
I don't understand that either, because I know that at this point, Bruce has managed to do something that, as far as I knew up until now, wasn't even legal. They've actually legally changed his gender. That's not even supposed to be possible.
No.
I used to work in the airline industry. That was the one thing that we always had to be careful about when we were doing reservations, or when I was taking soup calls about reservations, because we would occasionally get the transgendered person and we would have to ask them, please state your gender as it appears on your ID, because of the fact that they may or may not identify with that gender.
Yeah. I do think it's I'm like, well, there's a whole little bag of celebrity and white privilege right there for you. old Caitlyn Jenner got an exception to all the rules. Way to go.
Now let's back that up for a second, because this is interesting to me, and it's just something that's always bothered me. I could almost see them making the exception if, as you put it, he had the snippy snip. But they just legally made someone with a penis a woman.
Yeah.
That should make anybody's head hurt. It really should.
Yeah. It should really make you stop and scratch your head, because then what's stopping, I don't know, anything else? It's so weird. And I would really love to know, like, the justification behind it, and how many other people that they've done this for that have not had the full transition, that have not had the full surgical procedures to become the opposite sex.
As far as I know, the
DNA still doesn't
none.
change, but, their bodies do. I was going to say also that I grew up in the theater and dance world, and have had gay friends since I can't even remember. Like, I was that young when I had my first gay friend. And I'll tell you that I have a lot of friends that are not quite so enthused by this. They're not rah-rahing the cause, because they feel like they have worked a very long time to break down very legitimate barriers. And people come along throwing tantrums and screaming about some silly stuff like this. And even the cake thing was kind of off-putting to some of my friends, as opposed to like civil unions and gay marriage, which however you want to put it or however you want to slice it, they fought for that kind of stuff, for legal status with partners, to be able to have power of attorney, to be able to inherit things if the partner dies, to share children, limit the complications with all of those kind of legalities. And they've really fought for a long time for all of that. And then also to just not be side-eyed everywhere they go if they're holding hands, or just simple things like that. And they kind of feel like a bunch of this like foot stomping, tantrum throwing is really harmful to the very, what they think are very good steps forward that they've made in our society. And it kind of backtracks them. It kind of throws them into the same lump with these people, where it's like, well, there go the crazy LGBTs again, just demanding ridiculous crap. And they're not happy with it, because they think that there are so many other things that they could be, throwing their weight behind and really working towards. And this just isn't one of them.
No, and I will admit I know the same thing. Most people don't know this about me, but one of the largest contracts that I had when I ran my security and private investigations firm was the strip of gay bars in Oklahoma City. So I spent the majority of the time that I was actually wearing a badge in the private sector protecting the homosexual community, and I have friends and family that are homosexual, and we talk about it all the time. And a lot of them feel exactly the same way you and I do right now. This is not something that, as far as they're concerned, should have been an issue. They were more worried about focusing on making sure that the people that they were in love with, they could have the same rights as anyone else. And I understand that. I really do. It doesn't necessarily mean that I condone the fact that we've now completely changed the definition of marriage to suit a smaller group of people, when, as far as I'm concerned, there were other ways to get it done. But that's just,
Agreed.
I mean, I'm old, so let's just get that out of the way now. I'm 43. I understand I'm getting to the point where
Yeah, but I even know I have a young lesbian family member that also feels the same way, that said, I don't need it to be marriage. Why does it have to be marriage? Marriage is defined by a church, and I don't go to church. So give me my certificate and give me my partnership, and like however you need to say it, I don't care if it's marriage. But that's what it got championed as. And in like everything, there's like the small group that wants, in the name of equality, it to be exactly the same as what the straight, heterosexual sector is getting. And it's all just word choice. I mean, at this point, like it's annoying for Christians that it's marriage and it's called gay marriage and ruled on as gay marriage by the Supreme Court. But really what they were fighting for, I think most conservatives should not have a problem with in the liberty sense. I can understand having a problem with it in the name of it, marriage, and in a religious liberty sense, and in the sanctity of it, from their Christian backgrounds.
No, and that's actually been most of the folks that I've talked to. That's kind of been the take that they've had on it. Is look, there are still the hardline folks that are like, no way, shouldn't happen. My wife happens to be one of those people, so we've had our own disagreements over the years.
Sure.
But that's part of what makes being an American a great thing. We, up until this election cycle, have been able to disagree and still have cognizant conversations and be aware of how the other feels. That seems to have gone completely out the window, but we'll actually kind of touch on that when we get back. At this point, it's about time for us to take a break and pay a few bills. Can't believe we've already been doing this for half an hour, folks. We'll be right back. All right, folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
The wrong way. Welcome to the
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method and to get your free report, go to 29security.com. That's the number 29security.com. 29security.com. Go to 29security.com.
Think fast. In the short time it takes to listen to this message, a small flame can turn into a big fire. Several minutes more, and thick, poisonous smoke may have filled your lungs and reduced your ability to respond. Give it 5, and your entire home may be filled with flames.
Keep breathing. We've got you.
Don't let your world go up in smoke. Have working smoke alarms and always stay in the kitchen when cooking at high temperatures. Learn more at usfa.fema.gov, because fire is everyone's fight.
The staff of K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network is proud to announce that our very own Rowdy Rick Robinson has been selected as one of the top conservative talk show hosts in the nation for his program, America Off the Rails. Again, congratulations to Rowdy Rick Robinson for a job well done and another reason to stay connected to K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
All right, folks, we are back. I want to tell you about some friends of mine. This is America Off the Rails, and already we are into the last half of the show. I'm joined by Miss JR. You may know her from Twitter. If you don't, you really should be following her. She's actually one of the brightest people I know, and if you've been listening to the first half of the show, you know that that is now true. She's very articulate, very well-spoken, and able to put together a point probably better than I do, and I get paid to do this. I'm just saying. All right, so where were we before we left? I think we were actually starting to change gears into more of the political climate for this season. season. I'm assuming that's okay to talk about. I know that you spend a lot of time engaging with folks about that on Twitter, so I didn't necessarily ask if you wanted to talk about that because I know you've been doing a lot of arguing with Trumpers today.
Wrong way.
All right, so I gotta ask, when Trump first came onto the scene, what was your impression?
In one word, blowhard. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't like some of the stuff that he said. Sometimes especially at the beginning, actually, the last 4 years when he's teased us with, I might run for president, or I'll probably run for president, or maybe, blah, blah, and he'd say this crap. People will go, oh, you should. And he's just looking for everyone to pat him on the back. I did, at times, some of the stuff he was saying, I laughed and kind of went, ooh, and he would, really make a dig at someone about something with his, non-PC way. But I was never in a camp that I thought he was ever should be considered a serious contender. I thought he could be someone that could kind of use his celebrity and his mouthpiece and loud mouthpiece to kind of make a splash and get across some points that maybe our candidates couldn't say, like illegal immigration is crap. And that, he could get away with doing some of that stuff and kind of bolster our candidates as opposed to actually being one. Now here we are. And I don't think anyone really expected for it to go this far, least of all Trump himself.
We were having a technical issue when we came out of that break. Apparently one of the spots that I couldn't hear was still running, so I was apparently talking twice. Congratulations, folks. You heard me on the same radio station twice at the same time. Anyway, so yay for me. Like I said, glad this one's really not going out too far because it won't go anywhere for the next day or so I'll have time to clean it out. But anyway, so I have to admit, at first, I liked Trump at first. Not because of necessarily that he was giving anybody any substance, because he's still not really ever managed to do that. But I like the fact that for the first few months he was engaged, he was basically just socking the media in the mouth. It's something that I had wanted candidates to do now for years. Like when I watched Romney's camp back off of the fact that they caught Obama in a lie in the second debate, not only did they back off from it, they decided to completely not use it because they decided to quote-unquote take the high road. So I saw somebody that was willing to get down into the mud and trade punches with the media, and for a few seconds, I actually really liked what he was doing. But then it dawned on me, and it's something that I've kind of had running in the back of my mind for a long time now, and then there started to be stories that were coming out that supported the little tingling in the back of the neck that I had when it came to Trump. I don't think he ever expected to be where he is right now today. I don't think so at all. I think he planned on doing exactly what you just said. He was going to be the guy that was going to get the issues out there and get them to the forefront for the people, because he knew that the politicians either couldn't do it or wouldn't do it. And I think that was the extent of his involvement to a point. And you can say I'm crazy all you want, but look at how his ground game is falling apart now that it's gotten into the actual meat of how the process works. His team doesn't even understand how the process works. And he's flirted with running for president now since the 80s, and he doesn't understand how the process works. So you tell me that somewhere you can't start finding a little bit of a breadcrumb trail that proves to you that if there's two ways to look at this. He was either the guy that was going to bring issues to the forefront so that the other candidates didn't have to take the bullet to get it done, or he was supposed to be Kasich.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people go with the whole Hillary plant type thing. I'm not quite as tinfoil on that. I think that I get why they would say that and the possibilities of it. And just one second.
And remember we were talking about that young child? Yeah, that in case you caught it, yeah, it sounds like JR's kid was coming in to say hi. You could have left the mic unmuted. We could have.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Daddy wasn't watching him so well.
Next time, just lift him up and let him say hi. It's all good.
Oh, he would have just started screaming. I haven't quite taught him to say never Trump yet. But as soon as that happens, I would absolutely hold him up. No, nice. I just think that, I don't think the Hillary plant thing is as valid, only because, and I say this because for the last 4 to really closer to 8 years, he has kind of had some, leanings towards not the conservative movement by any means, but the moderate and moderate right. He's been friendly with Fox way before their love fest during this presidential election. He spoke out about some key issues, where he mostly supported the more, Republican position. I just think he doesn't have a core belief system. So he kind of flows, with the wind and everything. So I don't know that it's a plant type situation, but I do think that he thought he could come in, kind of say some crap. He'd get a lot of applause and a lot of cheers, and it'd never really go anywhere. And then he could be like, well, it would have been great if it was me, and I would have done it all better. And then instead, we've had this sweeping populist movement that has just lifted him up, and now we're still riding that wave.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what's happened. And again, I don't know if at some point he was looking for a graceful exit and couldn't find one, but I really don't think that he had any intention of being where he is right now. And I think that's even more evident because if you look, in the beginning of his campaign, he might not have been giving anybody any meat, but he was still at least behaving somewhat in the way of a gentleman. About halfway through, when no matter what he did, his numbers kept going up, he started doing really crazy things, like making fun of a disabled reporter, and it ran through the media cycle like wildfire, and everybody still excused it.
Right.
All of the other little things that have happened along the way they look to me like a guy who's basically trying to find the magic bullet to be able to step down and be done. And the fact that at this point, all he continues to do now is, if anything goes the right way, he sounds semi-rational, he's cordial, but as soon as anything goes wrong, it's, well, this whole system's rigged, Ted Cruz is a liar, America's being fooled. And I don't understand not only his actions in this instance, but so many of the bigger named and even some of the mid-level pundits that have just completely gone on board the Trump train, and they don't even want to admit it. I mean, come on. Look, Sean Hannity is half the reason why I started doing what I do, because he was one of the folks that I would listen to almost every single day while I was out running errands or doing things for my business that I needed to do, because most of the work that I did when I was in the field was at night, so all the business stuff happened during the day. So I always had talk radio running because it helped keep me focused and awake, because I was doing what I do now and sleeping about 2 to 3 hours a day. And he was one of the ones that inspired me. Him and Glenn Beck were the two that I would listen to almost all the time. Rush, I was more of a fan of when he had his TV show. But I never really got into Rush on the radio. I mean, there's just something about him that always makes him sound like he thinks he knows more than everybody else. Up until now, I never felt that from Sean Hannity until this election cycle. And maybe I just missed it. Maybe it was there all the time and I just didn't want to see it. But this election cycle, he might as well have his hand up Trump's rear end. Because any time they ever do a segment together, all Trump does is smile and nod, and when he doesn't answer Hannity's question right away, Hannity spoon feeds him one of his own ideas.
Right, he puts it right in his mouth. There's no way for him to stumble because he's just filling it all in for him.
And but I mean, how can nobody else in America see this? I mean, I still listen probably for about 20 minutes a day on the drive home. I will turn on Hannity because it's one of the only 2 talk stations that are in range, and the other guys are usually talking about a lot of the smaller local stuff because that's that other station's shtick, is they're the local talk guys, and the bigger station that I listen to is the national talk guys. So that's where their differences are. So for about 20 minutes a day, I will still turn on Hannity. And it's the same thing that I hear all day, every single day, is I'm not telling you who you should vote for. Really? Then do you not expect these same people that are listening to you tell them that you don't know who they should vote for? You don't think they watch your TV show and watch the different ways that you treat all of these other candidates? You know, the ones that you've bragged about having the access to? You tear all of them apart but Trump? And if Trump can't answer a question, you give him one of your answers, and you don't think that we can see this? I don't understand it anymore.
Right. And I remember when I was, I don't know, and I used to listen to Hannity radio-wise like all the time because I was always on the go, and I could just like download it to my old school MP3 player and listen to it or whatever. Or sometimes, and then once it became, you know, the technology became more available, I could stream it. And quite frankly, I still do sometimes, and I still listen to a number of different hosts that I don't necessarily like or agree with anymore. But that's part of the political junkie in me also, is like listening to kind of everything. It's why I never only watched Fox. I also watched MSNBC. I also watched CNN. I think it's part of like the political, just that little like political junkie thing. But I think one of the most disappointing things about this whole Trump-Hannity relationship is that Hannity was such a champion of Cruz's. When Cruz was fighting in Texas as the Tea Party candidate to take over in the Senate, he had him on all the time. He was fully supporting him, promoting him in a way of, and not like promoting him like just kissing his butt on everything, but I mean the values, talking about conservative principles, talking about a reinvigorated grassroots conservative movement that, you know, Cruz was really helpful in spearheading and becoming one of those little leaders of. And Hannity was just so all for that as a true conservative. And now the flip-flop is just mind-boggling.
The flip-flop is real, yo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and I don't know. Again, maybe I missed it somewhere along the way, and it's always been that way because, you know, it's one of the first times that I noticed it. I was actually talking to JD, who you know, of course, because you knew him before you met me. And he actually point blank told me, "Why are you surprised Sean Hannity's never been a conservative?" I'm like, "Do you know something I didn't? Because up until 5 minutes ago, I really kind of thought he was a conservative." He's like, "Nope, never been that way. I'm pretty sure he's been doing this for money the whole time, and we're just now finally starting to be able to see it." I'm like, man.
Yeah, and I have people saying that too. But even if that were true, the way in which he laid out and really made the case for so many conservative arguments and principles, I just have a hard time believing that he was fully in it for the money the whole time. I think he's been swept up in some stuff. I think it's nice to get behind a popular, quote unquote popular candidate. I think it's, and especially one that like just showers you with compliments. I think it's easy to get eat up with the entire kind of scene of it, especially if he's a billionaire, that there are all these perks that come with it by being his friend. I don't know. I don't know if he's a true sellout. I don't know if it's all been staged and he's just always been this like crappy pundit, but I actually got the chance when I was in college to listen to some of his original shows on that small station in Alabama that he was on. Was it Alabama? I think it was Alabama.
Yeah, the first talk station he was on, I believe, was in Alabama. I think you're right.
Like Huntington or something. Anyways.
Wait, no, wasn't it Atlanta? I think his first station was Atlanta because I remember him bragging about them running out of town.
It was like a small town first, and then he got picked up by, either way, doesn't matter. We got to listen to some. And I'm telling you, that guy did not seem like a fake. That guy was still working other jobs while also being on the radio 2 hours at a crappy time. And he was passionate and heartfelt, you know? So that's part of why I guess I don't really buy the whole, like, he was in it like this from the get-go. But that doesn't mean it hasn't turned into a gig that's more, you know, motivated by money as opposed to principle. That absolutely can be the case, for sure.
You know, and maybe that's it. I think what happens, and I think another good instance of this would be, I'm sorry for those of you listening, I'm about to say a name, I hope you're not eating, Ann Coulter. Another good instance of somebody who's just heard their voice for just a little bit too long is Ann Coulter. Because if you go back and listen to the things that she said when she was first starting to hit the scene, she wasn't nearly as crazy sounding as she is now. A lot of the things that she said actually made sense. Now I'm not even sure if she knows how to put more than 3 or 4 coherent words together. And as JD likes to put it, he's pretty sure it's because there's a long-running, steady diet of Red Bull and Marlboro. And that there's just not enough brain cells left between the extra caffeine and the nicotine and the smoke. I don't know. But it just seems like we have this cycle. And I just hope that now that some of us are on the way up, knock on wood that it stays that way, that we never look back and say this is the moment that we stopped being us for the sake of the money. Because I think that's honestly what's happened. I don't know if he meant for that to happen. I don't know if it was his plan all along. But I think he's gotten to the point where he was so used to basically being able to have money completely at his disposal. And he found a way to maybe get that to last that much longer. And there's even been some rumblings, and I've not been able to find any real proof of this other than a couple of little pictures on social media and that are buried on the internet. But there's been rumblings for a while now that Hannity was the one that's been grooming Trump now since 2012. Because, and some folks are saying that he's doing that because he's hoping that if Trump gets the nomination, that he'll be the next press secretary.
Oh, gosh. But see, I've never gotten out of him that he has a desire to actually be on the political scene other than, but maybe so. Also, I was going to say, I'd like to tweak it a little bit from just money motivation, just from like a dollar motivation to also something else that can be very, very intoxicating as well, which is, notoriety, fame, ratings, all of those things that come with it. It's not always just because of the money. Some of it's all the other stuff that just really like fulfills that ego and makes people, walk around with their head held high and thinking that they got all the stuff that everybody else wants. So I think there's a multi-level motivation here. And
you're probably right. So as we actually get to all of a sudden what seems to be the middle or the end of the show, I don't know where it went. We sat down to talk for what seems like 5 minutes and it's almost over. In the world of crazy PC-ness, and I think you will find this interesting, I am still looking for an actual print source of this of some kind. But as I was getting out of my car to go to the day job this morning, I heard a news story come across the radio that apparently someone has filed a petition with the University of Oklahoma to force us to change the names of our mascots because they're offensive. I'm not quite sure what's offensive about Boomer and Sooner, but hey.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe I haven't heard of this yet. I mean, half my family, this, are Sooners.
Oh, I know.
Oh, yeah.
So, see, up until now, this has only been in the chat room, but we're going to put this out over iHeart and Never Rails because we're already there. I don't know if I told you this, but we're on iHeart right now. I didn't. I probably should have told you that up front. But anyway, so after this last Bedlam match, JR and I made a gentleman and a lady bet in the chat room that what's going to happen for the next, what did we say, 2-3 months after the game? Wasn't that what it was? I know it wasn't like the whole time, but I know it was only supposed to be like a couple months. Yeah, it was like a couple
months after the game.
Whoever's team winds up winning between mine, the Sooners, and hers, the Longhorns, when we go into the chat and we talk to folks in the chat room and everything else, we have to use the other's slogan. So I'm really hoping that Boomer Sooner hasn't gone away by the time that happens.
It's okay. Even if they've gotten rid of it, I'll still say Boomer Sooner because that's part of my family history as well, even though you're my bitter rival.
Yeah, but see, we get along great the rest of the time. It's just that 1 week out of the year we can't talk to each other.
This is like most of my Oklahoma friends. See, there's a difference there. It's like family, but it's a vicious rivalry day of games. And then there's a lot of family, good nature, kind of ribbing, a lot of smack talking and whatnot. But there's a respect level there. Some of our other rivals, and I know with y'all as well, mostly of the Aggie and Okie Aggie type, there's not as much of the respect level. There's more of the little brother you just want to pound into the ground, or the snot-nosed kid next door that just keeps coming back for more and you just want to pound him.
No, that's OSU. Oh,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
damn, did I say that out loud?
Your Okie Aggies, your OSU, and then our Texas Aggies, which luckily, we don't have to deal with anymore, but still deal with their fans on a regular basis.
Yeah,
Shout out to Blazer McAt88, my friend Rebecca, who's an Aggie.
Yeah, at some point, our Oklahoma Aggies decided they were going to change their name and that they're not really Aggies anymore, which is what threw me off. But I know they started that way, but now they're like the OSU Cowboys and have been for a while. But
oh yeah. But yeah, we still call them Okie Aggies even in Austin.
Yeah, well, it fits.
We're like, oh, they're those Okie Aggies. Anyways, fun stuff.
All right, folks. Well, we have actually hit the end of the show. I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to Miss JR for hanging out with me for the hour. You all are welcome back anytime, ma'am. And actually, according to the chat, I think as far as they were concerned, I should have been auditioning my replacement. Just saying.
Oh, shush. This was so much fun.
Anyway, seriously, you are welcome back anytime. So if you ever want to come on again, just let me know. We will definitely get it set up. And because this was a blast, and it happens to be one of the fastest hours I've put on in a while because it seems like we just sat down 5 minutes ago.
Oh my gosh, I know. It went by so quickly.
All right, folks. Well, on that note, we have got to get out of here. We have coming up next Miss Jessie from Jessica Sanders, Jessie's POV, one of the newest shows we have on podcast, will be coming up on the Spreaker links tonight, folks. I'm sorry the server is having some technical issues. I do hope to have that situated by tomorrow. Again, thanks to everybody for tuning in. This is Rick Robinson. I'll be back with you live tomorrow night right here on K98 Talk. Don't go away, folks. Right again, up next, Jesse's POV.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Later.
Game over, man. It's game over.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.